All right, so we went into our controller, our water controller, and we added these 3 actions to be able to, well, we already were getting project types, to be able to add a project to our database, to be able to update a project in our database, to be able to delete a project in our database, and now we can call those actions through that API. All right, well, how do we handle it? That's on the back end. So we're set on the back end to be able to handle that, but now let's get back to the front end. What do we do on the front end? Well, what is it that updates our, or makes these calls to the API? We need to set it up, right? And we've set up a file now, wherever it is, in the API folder, in the API directory called Projects API. It's got here a function to go in and fetch projects. So in this, now we could just build it right in the form as well, but because we've already set up this API folder with this projects API that has to do with projects generally anyway, we can just come in here and set up a new, so just like fetch projects, a new function that will go out and add the data, delete the data, and edit the data. So we come in here and we say export. So we already did this with the, so this is the fetch projects. I'm going to do the same thing, export const add project, and that's going to be equal to async. And what do I need to be able to add a project? I need to know what the new project is. And so that's just a name I'm giving it. It doesn't have anything to do with the new project in the controller. And what type of information is that going to be? Well, that's going to be a project, wherever I've got so many files now. This project TS, it's going to be an instance of a project. And so I'm going to come in and say, this is going to be a project. And then we have this little verbiage here again that we are going to promise a project as a result of this. And then the arrow function, and then we have our actual function. Sorry, I'm scrolling through my notes, trying to remember. I'd written down exactly what I was going to say about a promise, and now I can't find it. But this verbiage is essentially saying that we're going to give you a project, but we're doing it in an asynchronous way, and so it may not come right as we get this function. It's going to come at some future point in time, and so then we use await to wait till the project comes in a moment. All right, so let's keep going with this. Now I got to find where it was in the notes. Okay, so then we're going to create again, good to do this inside a try catch block, and we'll create a const response, just like we've done before, equals await. There's our keyword. We're going to await for the data, and we call a fetch on a certain address. And so what is that certain address? Well, again, we know, just like we did here, this is going to be the same. And so we're still using the local host, but if we change it, then we have to go through and change all our API calls, right? And so we handle this just a little bit differently. Man, I'm jumping all over the place in my notes. But we can instead of trying to, type in this address every time, we can just set that up as a constant variable. So we can come up at the top before the fetch projects up here and say, let's build a const, and this is just, we'll call it the API URL. And we set that equal to HTTPS : well, let's just grab it here. So this first part that's common to all our requests, we can take and drop in here. And then in our actual call, instead of doing this whole thing, we can replace this with, again, we're in the back tick here, so we can drop variables in. We can do $API URL, and then the / water all projects, and so on and so forth. so that if this ever changes, we just change it in one place and it's good for the rest of the calls. And so I'll go fetch from that same place. So I'll again do backtick, and then say $, that says we're going to have a variable here in braces API URL. And then after that, we're going to have a /water for the controller. And then what's the name of our call if we're going to add a project? So if we go back and look in our front end controller, it's add. And so we can say /, whoa, that was not what we wanted. We can go into our projects API and say /add. And then in order for it to receive that information, what is it that we need to pass? And so we need to add a question mark, and then what are we sending to it? And again, if we go look at the water controller, we are expecting on the add that we're going to be passed a project, which is going to contain the information for a new project. And honestly, just to make it a little more explicit, maybe I'll say here, add. Oh no, the name of the method right there is called add project. That's what we're trying to access. And so back here in the project APIs, I can say add project. Now, I'm not actually going to add on at this point because we're going to do something else. I'm building this response. We're going to await this URL request that we're making. But then we have, let's see, I think it's a comma, and then an opening brace to pass in the second part, which is we're going to say the method is a post method. That's what we're going to be calling. The headers, and just bear with me, type this in just as is for a moment. Content type, and then we say is application /JSON, or sorry, yeah, application /JSON. And then that's the entry for the headers. So we have the headers there, and then the body that we're going to be passing. So we're passing in this JSON object is what we're going to be building out of this. The body we want to call JSON stringify, which I think is a cool stringify, a cool word. And we're going to pass in whatever new project we pass to ourselves when we call this add project method. Now that's not liking that. Let me finish this out and we'll see if that error goes away. So we have our try. Obviously with the try we're going to want, we got to do a couple other things though. So before we leave this idea in the response, we can then close. Let's see, I think we have an opening parenthesis. Oh yeah, there's not a closing parenthesis there. Maybe that's why it wasn't liking that. And then there is one here. And so this is all part of one statement, one function that has multiple parts. So we're calling this URL, and then we're passing it the information in a JSON object rather than passing a word directly. So this is going to come as part of a JSON object. And then we can say, let's see, so after this, it's still as part of the try. No, still as part of the try. But after this, I can say, sorry. So after this, I can say if, same thing as we've done before, response okay. So if not response okay, throw a new error and failed to add project. So we're aware of that. And then we can, at that point, outside the if statement, we can say return await response.json. So we can pass back the JSON just like we did in the previous method call there. And then we can put on our catch error. And then, okay, we're gonna have to finish this up in the next video. as we move on to the next thing. Spencer out.